Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. I am your hostess, Sandy Shellis. Happy New Year, guys. I see that you are joining. I see a busy chat, have a packed show for you tonight because it's something near and dear to my heart, the Great Lakes, Lake Erie specifically, because I know Lake Erie. I have a personal relationship with Lake Erie, having lived off of that lake across the street from the cliffs for probably nearly 19 years. And I love Lake Erie. I really love the Great Lakes. I love it here. I don't care about snow, although, of course, we have an El Nino year coming up. But thank you, Kim, and thank you, Looney Tunes, for moderating. And I see Scott's here. I think you're here, Scott Andrews, and Obsolete Optics. We have such a great team besides Jennifer, Nick, and Antonio, and well, me, Jennifer, Nick, Antonio, Jim, and then there's Obsolete Optics and Kim, our moderators, whoever joins that moderates, but really Kim and now Looney Tunes. Thank you so much. Let's get started. All right. So we're going to get started with, like I said, it's a busy show. Now, I first moved to the area in 1993. And let me pull up the first article. And I'm not going to read all these articles, but I want to talk about this. I could have just played this article because I realized if I played it, you could hear it. But I want to talk about something. We're going to go by the decades. And I want to talk about the decades because this happened when I first moved. I moved to the area in 1993. And I didn't even know what lake effect snow really. I didn't even really know what it was. And I learned because we bought a house, my ex-husband and I bought a house across the street from the cliffs. And we got hammered year after year. 1994, this was one of the first inklings I got that something was wrong because people would always talk about how, oh my gosh, you could ice fish and walk out and drive on Lake Erie and ride snowmobiles on the lake and all kinds of things. So being that this was the first really sad, it was really sad. There were three University of Buffalo law friends and they drowned in 1994. They disappeared under the ice while we thought they were cross-country skiing, and it was 10 miles between Hamburg and Crescent Beach. So they were trying to go to Canada. They were walking to Canada, which wasn't very smart. And again, this is 20 years ago. This, in a couple of months, I think it was, this article was, it doesn't, I don't know, does it say? February 22nd, 1994. And they said they were going to do this. And it was not cool. The Erie County Sheriff's Department, they had to launch a 16-foot boat with a grappling hook to pull their bodies out of the lake. So obviously there was something going wrong 20 years ago when the lake was not doing what people expected it to do or used to have it do. These people were incredibly brilliant, although they didn't think about things, unfortunately, when they took off to do this. And it's just very sad. It's very sad. So that was 1994 when I started feeling like, ooh, I want to learn about the Great Lakes. And so we're going to jump ahead a decade. And this is the Earth Observatory, and this is 2004, and this is what it looked like. This is Lake Erie, and I'll talk a little bit about all of the Great Lakes, but of course I'm most familiar with Lake Erie, so that is really what I want to do mainly, is talk about Lake Erie, but feel free, when you have comments, if you put a Q in front of it and I can see it after I'm finished with the show, if you have any comments on any of the other lakes, if you live on them. So it is not unusual for the surface to be covered by ice this time of year. Now, this I think was February of 2004. And this was February 8th, 2004. And you can see the lakes. They did satellites. They did a moderate resolution imaging spectral. I said I was going to do this. Just MODIS, okay, and NASA's Terra satellite. It shows ice covers most of Lake Erie with the exception of the long, narrow swath of surface water being visible along its northern coastline. The opening in the ice reveals light blue and turquoise patterns. So it's really cool. You know, the ice is cool. And we're going to jump ahead. We are going to jump ahead to 2014, which everybody knows and loves as the Snowvember. I had happened to be down here, but I didn't live down here yet. I still lived in Erie County. I still lived right by the lake. I had a different place, but I lived in a townhouse by the lake, and we got Snowvember. And I'm going to show you a few pictures of my own, but that was epic. So if anybody remembers 2014, I could not get home. It was days of this, days of it. The lake obviously wasn't frozen over because when you get frozen over lake, you don't get the same kind of lake effect snow, which brings up all the moisture and then dumps the snow on us. So it will remembered as one of the significant winter events in Buffalo's snowy history. 5 feet of snow east of Buffalo. Oh, we had gotten feet. And I had remembered getting like 2-3 feet of snow. I mean, it wasn't unusual. My dogs liked it, but this was November 17th, and I could not get home. Like I said, I couldn't get home for a few days, and I really wanted to leave. So I want to see if I can bring in any pictures. Yeah, that was what it looked like. And this is days later. So this is what it looked like days later, after I got home. And when I got home, I had to break into my house because my friend that was taking care of my cats, well, something happened with the garage. I couldn't get in, but those were the snow mounds. And again, it may not look unusual to you Buffalonians, but it was a hairy as hell, And this is the windows of my place looking out. I mean, there was so much snow and ice. It was insane. So that's what it looked like outside. And another, snow mountain. And there's the pole. I don't know if I could fix that picture, but that was how it looked. Yeah, it was quite the drive home for me from Allegheny County to go home because my cats were home. And I remember we were at our camp. We had a camp down here before we moved here. And it was like a trailer that was in a place where we rented the space. And sorry, I'm just trying to see everything's cool. Okay, well, we rented the space and oh my goodness, all right, hang on. So it was cool, but I couldn't get home. And I think I've showed you. Yeah, that was looking out my bedroom, but this is days later. And it had been cleaned up after I broke into my house, and all this stuff, but it was quite a snowfall. I will say that. This storm, let's see how it just sat there, so I couldn't get home. Tuesday, November 18th, the snow band did not budge, and it was Lancaster to southern Cheektowaga, east to Alden, 4 or 5 feet. Now, I lived in a town of Evans, the town of Evans. And the picture behind me is Evangola State Park. And I took those, I took that picture. That was a different storm. That wasn't 2014. I went down there in 2022. That's what's behind me because we've had several storms. But it was an incredible 65 inches in Cheektowaga, 63 inches in Lancaster. Any of you that are from this area, you will understand, So what I want to do here is, it's so cold you could walk across Lake Erie, getting back to the beginning story. But this was in Atlantic, and 95% of the lake surface is frozen, but don't get any big ideas. This was from 2015, so we're going up a little bit. But then we're going to go backwards because I have something I made for you. Let's make it clear. In no way is it a good idea to trek from the United States to Canada via Lake Erie, which is currently a frozen wasteland of ice, wind, and snow. But perils aside, is it possible? You know, they said 95 that year was 95% was covered by ice, because it does change. You'll see. I will show you how it's changed. The hike has been done before. And there is a narrow approach, about 25 miles across. This account in 2007 in Cleveland, Dale Volker, he recounts how he went in 1978 to do this. And I'm going to read this part. The wind had died down to a dead calm. My thermometer read 20 degrees. The stars were out in full force, and I could see shimmering lights on the shores, except for the drone of an occasional invisible plane. The silence was complete and overwhelming. It was a peaceful, striking image, and as I beheld the rare beauty of a frozen lake in the dead of night, I felt possessed by a satisfying and impregnable serenity. Sounds incredible, but it's incredibly dumb, as this back in 1994 would tell you. So, and other people, yeah, see, this article talks about it. But since I have you as a captive audience, I made a little video about a story that I read, and I'm going to play this for you. Enjoy it. I'm going to bring it up, and hang on a second, and I'm going to bring this video up for you. Okay, here we go. On a cold Saturday morning in the March of 1963, Gene Hauser left his warm home on East Lake Road and headed due north. When he reached the shore of Lake Erie, the only thing ahead of him was an icy, barren wasteland as far as the eye could see. His plan was to hike over the ice about 32 miles to the Canadian lighthouse at Long Point, stay the night, and then hike back to Harbor Creek. Little did he envision the many obstacles that lay ahead. Using only a small compass to guide him, he soon found that heading due north was seldom possible, as he encountered pillars of ice 5 feet high and snowdrifts of over 10 feet. He later told a reporter, "I never expected to see what I saw. It was not just a smooth surface." As evening approached and he was still miles from land, he knew he would be spending a long, cold night on the ice. The moon shone brightly for about an hour, but later clouds covered the sky, leaving him in near total darkness. Using a small flashlight allowed him to continue his northward trek. He said, "The flashlight lit up these huge ice chunks with a fluorescent glow into eerie forms and shapes like those on a barren planet. Sometimes I fell on the jagged surface and just lay there on the ice. I knew I could not lie down long or I would freeze." He also said that one of the most vivid recollections of that long night was of the small pinholes in the ice through which the water below was periodically forced under pressure to spout up into the air and freeze. The frozen spurts looked to him like telephone poles standing straight up all over the lake. He told the Erie Morning News later, "I knew my planned route from Shades Beach to Long Point was about 32 miles, but I figured I must have walked over 50 miles because of the drifts and ice chunks I had to walk around." Well past daybreak on Sunday morning, Gene reached the lighthouse, where he saw some shacks belonging to a team of Canadian scientists making a lake study. They didn't believe that he had just strolled over from the nation to the south until he showed them his ID. Canadian police escorted him to the mainland at Port Rowan, Ontario. Gene quickly revised his original plan of walking back to Harbor Creek and instead called his brother in Buffalo to pick him up. Well, with experience comes wisdom. While in Canada, Gene learned that a Northeast man, Walter Lick, had walked across the frozen Lake Erie in 1912. I'm going to look him up if I can. Okay, well, I hope you liked that one. That's just the first. I've got, like I said, I have a packed show. So we're going to move over to the EPA and climate change indicators, Great Lakes ice cover. Now, these graphs show the percentage of surface area in each of the Great Lakes that froze on the maximum day of each year since 1973. And really, it's not the graphs as much as, and I do have those to show you. Actually, I can show you those in a minute. I wanted to read here the key points on the research. Key points. Since 1973, the maximum area covered in ice on the Great Lakes has varied considerably from year to year. Adding the 5 Great Lakes together, maximum frozen area has ranged from less than 20% in some years to more than 90% in others. All the 5 lakes have experienced some degree of long-term decrease, but the decrease is only statistically significant in one, and that's the big one, Superior. Years with much lower than normal ice cover appear to have been more frequent during the past 2 decades. Especially in lakes like Erie and Superior that have a history of freezing almost completely. Since 1973, the number of frozen days, the duration, on all 5 Great Lakes has declined. Ice duration on these lakes has decreased at rates ranging from 1/5 of a day per year in Lake Huron to almost a full day per year in Lakes Ontario and Superior. Overall, this means that the Great Lakes are frozen for 8 to 46 fewer days now than they were in the early 70s. The decreases in Lake Ontario and Superior are statistically significant. And this is the detailed map, which I'll show you, shows many areas of the Great Lakes have experienced significant decreases in ice cover duration, but other parts of the lakes have not changed significantly. Duration has increased the most in areas near the shore. And let me see these pictures. This is overall Great Lakes. And you see the annual ice cover maximum, how it really it varies. It still goes up and down. It moves around. 2020, though, you can see 2020, it really did go low. I mean, very low. And that's the Great Lakes. And then here's Lake Erie. Okay. So on the ice cover. And it is changing. I mean, it is changing. Let's see. This is any different. They're not really all, this is too small, so they're not that different, to see from what I showed you. But the temperature trends, they influence covered data and duration. But natural year-to-year variations and decadal climate cycles may play a bigger role. With more than 4 decades of data, though, this indicator clearly shows meaningful long-term trends and variations that relate to the regional climate of the Great Lakes, which is linked to broader global weather and climate patterns. So NOAA gives us a lot of this stuff. So this is from the EPA, and we're going to move on because a little bit back to the Buffalo News again in November 2014, because this was from 2017. And what this article started to talk about was how to look back and understand what happened in 214, how to deal with it. Now, obviously, last year in 2022, the city of Buffalo didn't deal with it all that well because there were tragic deaths and they weren't prepared. But what I wanted to show you, and I thought, I highlighted it. Okay, so how Snowvember unfolded. Arctic air is very dry, so to create snow, a storm needs to add heat. That's where the lakes come in. In November 214, a deep pool of frigid Arctic air ripened itself over the western Great Lakes and Lake Michigan. And remember, I showed you the pictures of Snowvember, how awful it was. And that was days after. It rushed towards Buffalo from the southwest across Indiana and western Ohio before jumping onto Lake Erie's 271-mile straightaway. Along the way, it found its heat source. The surface of the lake's 48-degree water started to warm the air above it, destabilizing the atmospheric column. The stark temperature difference between the water and the air increased the rate of evaporation. Winds kicked up waves and spray from the water, adding to it. It pulls the heat from the lake to the air, Fujisaki Manomi said, and that's one of the researchers, obviously. The air warms up, it holds moisture, and it begins to lift. The surface of the lake's waters were literally vaporized and lifted up. That water vapor rose and rose and rose, forming clouds, a wall of clouds. The wall of clouds grew 3 miles high, and guided by southwest wind, the wall was driven into the heart of western New York. There, the clouds emptied themselves over several days for feet of snow. And obviously, the lake was not frozen then, because when the lake freezes, you just don't get as much. You don't get the big snowstorms. We used to hope for the lake to freeze so that we didn't have to do it again. I mean, I used to come home from work and there would be 2 feet of snow. I was a corner house. The plow used to plow me in, and I'd literally come home from work and I had a shovel in my vehicle and I shoveled out my driveway. You live like that when you live there. Here, I haven't had my driveway plowed in years. I sold the plow to my tractor. I don't even need it. If it does snow enough where I have to have it, I just pay the kid $35 and he comes and does it. So I don't need it. It's changing. And of course, I'm below, now that I moved to Allegheny County, New York, I'm below the snow belt. So I'm certainly not like where it used to be, but the snow belt is pretty hairy. Now, they talk about modeling snow, and they have been modeling snow for years. And I lost the picture. I've got to find the picture I wanted to show you. Okay, here it is. This is from 1969 to 1970. And it's just so interesting to look at the way that this was an NOAA technical memorandum, the way that they looked at things back then, but specifically how did they get the observations? And let's see here, ice charts, ice summary charts. All right, the ice charts back then. 33 ice charts were prepared from data obtained on 14 visual aerial reconnaissance flights. These included 8 regularly scheduled flights, 2 supplementary helicopter flights, and 4 flights made by the Coast Guard for operational purposes. The ice charts show symbolically the principal characteristics of the ice, including boundaries, concentrations, ages, types, topography, and limits of observed area. With the exception of Lake Ontario, which is covered by the Canadian Department of Transport, ice charts were prepared for each of the Great Lakes, including Lake St. Clair. So what I want to do is go down and I'm going to show you how much things have changed. Obviously, you know, this is, that's the Straits of Mackinac. Wait a minute, I'm looking for Lake Erie. And I did not turn it over. That's Lake Michigan. What happened to Lake Erie? Well, we could look at that too, but Lake Erie, oh, here we go. Here's Lake Erie ice chart. So in those days, it was basically airplanes. It wasn't satellites. It was airplanes, helicopters, scientists, modeling, going out But that's what it looked like in that time. And all these links will be in here. So they did, let's see here, the study. Okay. So they were saying that computer models, they have to make some assumptions on data. The data crunched by this particular study's researchers is now being used to gauge how effective the models were at simulating the transfer of heat. So remember, this was 2017 when they were trying to look at, oh no, this was, yeah, and they updated it in 2020. So December 9th, 2017, updated in 2020. But to learn, obviously, but it didn't do anything for 2022, did it? It didn't. But it was the largest 2014 since 1945. Anyway, so they modeled it, and now they sonic anemometer. Can that improve the effect, accuracy of the lake effect forecasting? Well, it should, one of the researchers said, along with higher resolution 3D pictures of the atmosphere, devices measuring the transfer of heat between the water and air. It's another tool that can be used to improve forecasting lake effect snowstorms. From each of these research efforts, you glean just a little bit more information. So it's pretty interesting. And the Buffalo News, they sometimes have some pretty good articles, and I resubscribed for as long as I could do it. They want quite a bit. All right, so that was the Buffalo News. We're going to move on. But before we move on, I have got another piece for you. And this one is really interesting. I think you're going to like it.
The ice boom, located at the outlet of Lake Erie near the head of the Niagara River, is installed each year to accelerate the formation and stabilization of the natural ice arch. The ice boom is installed to reduce the frequency and duration of ice runs from Lake Erie into the Niagara River, but does not eliminate the release of lake ice into the Niagara River. By reducing the frequency and duration of ice runs, the ice boom diminishes the probability of large-scale ice blockages in the river, which can cause flooding, damage to shoreline property, as well as a reduction in the flow of water to the hydroelectric power plant intakes. The ice boom is owned and operated by the New York Power Authority and Ontario Power Generation, and both are responsible for its installation and removal. The International Joint Commission, or IJC, was established under the Boundary Waters Treaty of 1909 to help the United States and Canada prevent and resolve disputes over the use of shared waters. The IJC's International Niagara Board of Control, established in 1953, monitors the operation of the Chippewa Grass Island Pool above Niagara Falls and also oversees the installation and removal of the ice boom. The board also monitors the ice melt each spring to determine when conditions are acceptable for the removal of the boom. As part of the monitoring efforts, representatives of the board, including the Corps of Engineers, Environment Canada, New York Power Authority, and Ontario Power Generation, perform helicopter flights on the eastern end of Lake Erie to determine the thickness of the lake ice. First, the helicopter will land on the ice and bounce to test the stability. Once it is determined that the ice is solid enough to walk on, team members move out onto the ice and drill holes using an electric auger. After the auger penetrates through the ice, a modified ruler is used to take ice thickness measurements. This process is repeated at 5 additional locations across the eastern end of Lake Erie. Ice thickness is one piece of information used to monitor the ice behind the boom. Other monitoring includes observation of ice cover through satellite imagery, information from the Canadian and U.S. National Ice Services, and flights over the ice using a fixed-wing aircraft. The boom opening is dependent on weather, ice conditions in the Niagara River, and other factors. Traditionally, the boom is opened by April 1st of each year unless there is more than 250 square miles of ice remaining in the eastern end of Lake Erie.
All right, so I'm going to show you now that you looked at that video, which it was from a while back. I want to show you the Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory. This is a PDF. It's just 2 pages. It just tells you what they do. And it says it varies dramatically year to year. The GLERL ice research informs commercial shipping as well as ice breaking operations. So remember, it's about the money, honey, because these ships go up and down the Great Lakes to deliver freight. Yep, food, freight. Don't forget the dollar store shit. You know, we all have to have our dollar store shit, don't we? So, understanding the causes of fluctuations and the extent and duration of ice cover on Great Lakes is crucial to the regional economy. See, it's all about the money, honey. The amount of ice cover, as well as how long it remains on the lakes, varies greatly from year to year, and it can have both positive and negative impacts on a range of water-dependent industries, from hydropower, which I have to say is how my house is powered. It is hydropower, carbon-free here where I live, to the fishing industry, to commercial shipping. And so this laboratory, they explore the relationships between ice cover, lake temperatures, and regional climate through models based on observations of variables such as ice cover, surface water temperature. Studying, monitoring, and predicting ice cover on the Great Lakes enhances the ability to predict lake water levels, water movement patterns, water temperature structure, lake effect snow events, and spring plankton blooms, important for navigation, weather forecasting, fisheries management, and adapting to lake level changes, and of course, recreational safety and rescue. So they observe current ice cover, they analyze and host historical ice cover data, which is pretty cool, and they model and they forecast. So this one, I don't think I can make this one bigger either. It's quite small, but it shows you the maximum ice coverage from 73 to 21. That's it, though, 21. So that's what they do. GLERL, Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory. I don't know if anybody uses that at all. So that's them. And I'm going to move on. Now, this one I'm actually going to read. All right. This is a good one. It was this year. And we're going to move on to understand the consequences of the ice coverage. And I am going to read. Over the last 50 years, the Great Lakes have experienced increasing variations in ice coverage. Certain winters, such as 2014, witnessed near complete coverage, while others had minimal ice. Nevertheless, a clear pattern emerges, indicating an overall decline in icy conditions. This trend has implications not only for the environmental landscape of the lakes, but also for vital regional industries like hydropower, fishing, and commercial shipping. The Great Lakes, the impressive symbols of North America's beauty, have enthralled the hearts of people across the United States and Canada for centuries. Encompassing the largest freshwater lakes on Earth, they serve as a sanctuary for outdoor adventurers and a hotspot for commerce and industry. Both industrial and recreational uses of the lakes, however, change depending on seasonal conditions. And so recent extremes in ice coverage have raised alarm and encouraged meticulous tracking of annual ice patterns. If you look at the time series of annual maximum ice coverage, you can see a clear declining trend that goes back to 1973 And this is the same person, Dr. Ayumi Fujisaki Manomi, an assistant research scientist specializing in lake ice and hydrodynamics for the Cooperative Institute for Great Lakes Research. I think it's an important thing to notice is that it's not really a monotonic decrease, but a lot of year-to-year fluctuations, which we've seen in the other graphs I showed you. According to him, ongoing research on global warming is attempting to explain the root causes of fluctuating yet declining ice coverage and how much might be attributed to normal climatic variations. Our lake hold is only 50 years old, so it's kind of hard to tell whether this declining trend is coming from global warming or part of this low-frequency oscillation, he said. So this is the same graph. A lot of people use it. Here we can see 2017, the Great Lakes, the average was 19.4% covered, and then it went up in 2019 to 80.9. Then it went down again 2020, went up again. Look, that's pretty wild. 2022, 56.1%, and 2023, it's down so far, but we're also in an El Nino year. So environmental effects, ice coverage fluctuations play a pivotal role in shaping the health of the Great Lakes. From triggering algae blooms to balancing ecosystem, ice coverage shapes the lives of both animals and humans in the region. When ice melts early and the water becomes warmer, cyanobacteria or the blue-green algae plague the Great Lakes. While this bacteria favor warmer conditions, new research shows that blue-green algae blooms can occur in icy conditions as well. Although blue-green algae blooms generally increase with declining ice coverage, they may still be present during icy oscillation periods. A few observations are being made under icy conditions, and they have found some algae existing underneath the ice. Though scientists think that it might have some impact on springtime or even summertime biogeochemistry, Fujisaki Manomi said. The algae blooms produce toxins that are harmful to animals and people, and the depletion of oxygen that occurs during the blooms contributes to decline in populations of fish. The weather system also faces extreme impacts from declining ice coverage. Open water caused by melting ice can lead to lake effect snow. The process occurs when cold air moves along warm, open lake water. It transfers warmth to the lowest part of the atmosphere, causes the air to rise, and forms clouds that produce the snow. Even in January, we don't get that much ice cover. There's a lot of open water, and if there is cold air coming up, that can cause a lot of lake effect snow, and that can damage downwind communities a lot. So that this shows the algal blooms in Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Erie, and see how they are at the coasts. Yeah, you can see my pointer. And Lake Erie had a whole host of problems. Hydropower. In addition to its environmental effects, fluctuating ice coverage on the Great Lakes has significant industrial implications. Hydropower, the use of fast-running water to generate electricity, is a vital industry in and around the Great Lakes. In a report written in 2014, Victoria Lubner and her colleagues revealed that hydropower already accounts for 9% of the power generation in the region. As the global trend toward sustainable energy gains the momentum, the Great Lakes exhibit the potential to expand hydropower. In years when ice cover is high, hydropower generation can be less efficient. As ice freezes the waterways, it hinders the flow of water and impedes optimal hydropower generation. Waters upstream can experience unintended flooding due to impeded flows, while hydro power plants downstream suffer from decreased water availability and lower levels of hydropower generation. So paradoxically, as ice cover and water levels drop, drought-like conditions can occur, creating different challenges for hydropower plants. The emerging trend of extreme weather creates the need for maintaining equilibrium between ice cover and water levels, an endeavor that would require limiting greenhouse gas emissions and slowing down the potential impacts of climate change. Fishing and recreation. The overall declining ice trend also has profound impacts on fishing, a powerful economic driver that generates more than $7 billion annually and supports about 75,000 jobs in the Great Lakes region. The disappearance of ice cover during warm winters disrupts fish habitats, spawning patterns, and survival rates, it directly affects the productivity of the commercial fishing industry. Great Lake fish eggs are protected after cold winters with substantial icy conditions, generally increasing survival. Research has discussed that ice cover protects fish eggs, and because if the ice is stable enough and attached to the shore, it dampens waves when wind is blowing. So ice cover dampens wind stress and water can remain calm. So that protects the fish eggs and it really helps with the springtime spawning, Fujisaki Minomi said. Most fish eggs in warmer temperatures face challenges such as smaller egg size, waves, and wind stress, leading to reduced chance of maturation and survival. Data from the Great Lakes Fishery Commission demonstrates that overall, the production of fish in pounds has decreased since 2014, one of the iciest winters in Great Lakes history. Beyond commercial impacts on the fishing industry, fluctuating ice coverage could also affect the Great Lakes tourism industry. Recreational fishing is a key player in Great Lakes economies, and it relies on abundant fish populations, according to Michigan State University's Michigan Sea Grant. In 2017, charter captains logged 12,122 fishing trips in the Michigan waters of Lake Michigan, generating tourism that created $7 million in personal income and over 322,000 employment hours. Furthermore, the Great Lakes are also a prime destination for winter recreation. Ice fishing, a Midwestern cultural tradition, favors icy winters, and it has been called off in recent years due to lower ice coverage. Another study predicts an increase of unsafe ice for leisure activities, such as ice fishing and skating as overall ice diminishes. The predictions indicate the availability of safe ice could decrease by 13 to 24 days in the future, posing an obstacle for recreation. Commercial shipping. While icy conditions may be preferred in fishing, the shipping industry favors the opposite. From some perspectives, the shipping industry benefits from the overall decline in ice coverage, but it struggles when extreme icy oscillations occur. The commercial shipping industry comprises a vast portion of economic growth in the Great Lakes region. It creates 227,000 jobs, $33.5 billion in business revenues, $14 billion in annual personal income, $6.4 billion in local purchases, $4.6 billion in tax revenue, and it saves $3.6 billion in transportation rates, Peace said. A 2018 study estimated a loss of 10,000 jobs and $2 billion during the harsh winters of 2013, 15, and 17 because of inadequate equipment to deal with icy conditions and ice-locked ships. The first key to understand commercial shipping is to understand the SUE locks, essential passageways on the Great Lakes. These locks encounter remarkable obstacles during icy conditions, rendering them inoperable from mid-January to mid-March and halting shipping for the winter season. Due to treacherous, icy condition in the period before and after the lock closure, commercial ships, they could get caught in the ice for days, and I remember that happening. So that's the view of the SUE locks connecting Lake Huron and Superior. And we have our own lock system here, too, up in Lockport. That's the town of Lockport. The onset of ice season also disrupts the flow of vital raw materials from the upper Great Lakes to the lower Great Lakes. This disruption creates consequences that for the lower Great Lakes region, a hub for manufacturing and processing these materials into steel and various goods. The far-reaching ripple effect poses a threat to the economy and puts a strain on job availability in the region. A heavy ice season impedes our ability to resupply critical facilities on the lower lakes with raw materials that come from the upper lakes. Eric Peace, the vice president of the Lake Carriers Association, said, "What that means is we cannot resupply those mills. The steel mills in the lower lakes. Facilities lose manufacturing, people lose job, and the economy withers. When ships are caught in heavy ice sheets, there are regional repercussions. Vital deliveries fail to reach their recipients, prompting widespread disruptions in supply chain. The icy challenges pose threats to the timely delivery of vital goods, contributing to economic instability." Now, of course, the perspective from the ports is if the ships are stuck in the ice out there, they aren't getting to our ports. They are not delivering the cargoes that people need. Sometimes those cargoes are important to people, and sometimes it's iron ore for street mills that make steel for the auto industry, or sometimes it's salt for road safety. Sometimes it's limestone for construction. Sometimes it's grain for food production. I used to pass Kellogg's every day, or is with General Mills every day going to work, every single day off the Skyway. This was Steve Fisher, the executive director of the American Great Lakes Ports Association. The only solutions for ships stuck in the ice are ice-breaking fleets run by the United States and the Canadian Coast Guard. And I have something after this about that. The region's limited supply of available icebreakers had led to significant challenges in ice removal. According to Peace, the Great Lakes region has downsized from 20 icebreakers in 1979 to 11 today. He attributes the reduction of resources to skewed data, which focuses on small waterways as opposed to the entirety of the region. The consequences include impeded trade efficiency and delays in the movement of vital commodities throughout the Great Lakes. I always use the analogy of snowplows on the highway. If somebody relied on the highway for delivery of goods and there was a bad snowstorm, we assume the local city or county or state government has snowplows to come out and clear the highway. We all just sort of assume that that will happen, and I think we would all be shocked if it didn't happen. Well, that's kind of what these icebreakers are. They are the snowplows of the Great Lakes. And this is the Mackinac. Amidst the challenges of ice-breaking operations, however, a glimmer of hope emerges. With President Biden passing the infrastructure bill, $55 million of the $350 million project has been granted to the Coast Guard's budget to construct a large ice-breaking vessel around the same size as the Mackinac, the biggest icebreaker on the Great Lakes, to combat heavy ice. When President Biden proposes funding for anything in his budget, ultimately Congress has to approve that. That's the phase we're in now. So I did have something, and I don't know if I have it pulled up. I'll look for it. Ice, just from cyanobacteria blooms and disrupted fish habitats to challenges in hydropower generation, fishing, and commercial shipping, ice coverage plays a vital role in maintaining the ecosystems and industries of the Great Lakes. So not only that, it's a signifier of more climatic changes to come. Ice is a pretty major part of the response to global climate change. It's very sensitive. And it's such a critical piece of the entire system, Fujisaki said. The change in lake ice is so manifest of the expression of all changes. Okay, that was a good one. That's why I read it. It was, I thought, well written. And that I'm going to move on because this is the Great Lakes Institute for Environmental Research. And I'm going to go through this one next, but I need to look for the piece I had. Here it is. It's the Great Lakes Winter Commerce Act. And it would update the outdated Coast Guard Great Lakes ice-breaking mission and increase the ice-breaking capacity of the Great Lakes fleet. Ice breaking is critical, which I read before. So we know that, and we know about, so let's see what this bill did. Did it come through? I don't even remember if it passed. I did to look to make sure it passed, but it codifies into law the United States Coast Guard ice breaking mission for the Great Lakes. So they're not going to let the ice stay in there. No, we have to coordinate with industry, requires them to report to Congress on the ice breaking season, authorizes $350 million for a new Great Lakes icebreaker, expedited acquisition based on the contractor qualification and price. So there were a lot of endorsements. So I knew I had that up. I knew I had that up in this article. So once again, before we go on, I have a little something for you that I think you might like. And this one, okay, here we go. Hang on, here we go.
The Lake Erie ice cover this past winter was pretty much non-existent. Not only was there no ice fishing season, but the lack of ice has caused other problems that could be disastrous for our shorelines. Meteorologist Matt Willoughby is in Oregon along the shore of Maumee Bay to break down why this may be a problem for the area in the future. Matt?
Yeah, Mel, over the past winter, the Great Lakes has seen its lowest ice cover ever on record. And with at least the waves, water, ice, and gravity continue to reshape the land and the water interface, it leaves experts no choice but to do things like build walls, prevent erosion, but it may not be the easiest to stop.
With climate change, ice provides a protective barrier to our coastlines, basically negates a lot of the energy from waves that might occur in the winter. You know, these winter storms whip up. Ice would typically provide some protection to our coastlines. Without that ice cover, we have the full brunt of wave action hitting the coastlines, resulting in erosion.
60 to 90% of the shorelines along Ohio is protected by seawalls. But coming up at 6, I'll be talking about how the coast erosion can be right at your doorstep if nothing is done. Reporting on the shore of Lake Erie, I'm meteorologist Matt Willoughby for WTO 11.
One of the places being impacted within the city of Buffalo tonight is the Black Rock neighborhood. That's where Storm Team 2's Patrick Hammer has been all afternoon long. Patrick, what does it look like right now out there?
Well, it is just a solid area of ice on the Niagara River. I'm sure you saw the picture we put out just a little while ago of the broken ice boom that was traveling down the river in this shield of ice. Clearly the ice boom did not work. Stands to reason when we've had winds this strong, this high for so long. Now, it's hard to see now because of the dark at night, but way out there in the center of the Niagara River, the water is flowing freely, but it's ice and it's flowing pretty quickly. Closer to the shore, it's standing ice and water, and the water levels here are so high. We're at the boat launch, almost up to parking lot level, and the same could be said for LaSalle Park and down at Canal Side as well. My photographer Terry, who's lived here a very long time, has never seen the water level this high. Because of all of the ice traveling down the Niagara River, there is a flash flood warning due to some flooding concerns, flash flooding occurring down towards Tonawanda, and that is going to be a concern for the next few hours, as even though there's some open water at the mouth of the river right now, I gotta believe more ice is going to push down the length of Lake Erie and then eventually flow down here through the Niagara River, which is, again, just ice as far as the eye can see. It seems like the ice boom broke a few hours ago, and ever since the ice has been cruising down and shows no signs of letting up. The wind has been persistent, it has been gusty, and as Heather has been telling you, there's no sign of that letting up anytime soon. So again, live here along the Niagara River, ice jam flooding is occurring, and again, ice as far as the eye can see.
The ice boom, that's a big thing in Buffalo, and Christy's with us, and she knows because she lived there, and I lived and I had to drive along what is called Route 5 to the Buffalo State University, where I worked forever in the Research Foundation, and I drove through hellacious snowstorms all the way up 20 miles, well, it's 22 miles there and 22 miles home. It was a scenic route. You pass a lot of beautiful things, but it could be really hairy, really, really hairy. And when the Skyway was closed, which goes over Buffalo, where you could see all the industry on the right side, and if it was closed, you had to go back the back way. I remember many times having to go around down on underneath. It was pretty hairy. So, but I have good memories. You know, it never used to scare me to drive in the snow. I had four-wheel drive vehicles. So this is the University of Windsor, and what I thought here that was interesting, which is it's a lot of repetition, but this one shows this little graph, if you can see it, ice cover percentage, and how it looks. This is an average. So this was 73 to 2017, but this is kind of how it looks. And it is, it's a bell curve. It goes up and you get the most in February, sometimes even to March. Hang on a second, guys. Let me mute myself for a second. I have to take a drink. Sorry, I really do get thirsty. So I highlighted this part on this article, status and trends. While there is annual variability in Lake Erie ice coverage, there has been on average less ice cover in the decades since the 1990s than in the decades prior to the 1990s. This trend is observed in both average and maximum annual ice coverage on the lake. Figures 2 and 3 demonstrate this trend, with figure 2 showing decadal averages for annual average ice cover, and figure 3 shows the decadal averages for annual maximum ice. So if you can, trying to see if you could see these. They're not going to get bigger. So I'll tell you, here, the annual ice coverage on Lake Erie with those averages, right? So the 1970s was up here about maybe, 28% ice coverage. Now this is average, remember. And the purple, 1980s, it goes down a little bit. But then in the 1990s, you'll see the ice cover percentage went down precipitously. I mean, it was less than 20%. And that was for quite a while. That lasted from 1990, 1995 to 2000. That's serious. 2000s? Okay, well, we edged up back a bit. I didn't pull up what exactly happened in the 90s other than the 4 students that drowned, but that it went up again. But now and then in the 2010s and 15s, it went down again. So these are older, obviously, but these show you the different ice coverage percent averages. And this is the annual ice cover on Lake Erie specifically, which, being a smaller lake, it's not as deep as some of the others. I know in college I took Great Lakes ecology and I learned about mesotrophic, oligotrophic lakes, the different kinds of lakes. It was interesting. It wasn't eventually what I went into. Maybe I should have stuck to it. It was very interesting. But the difference in Lake Erie as opposed to the annual average ice cover. Now, this is annual average ice cover with decadal averages. Here we go. All right. So these are annual maximum ice cover. So that was average. This is maximum. Ice cover on Lake Erie is in black with decadal averages. And so you see the same, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just showing you a little bit differently. But, they say with a downward trend in ice coverage since the 1990s is observed, it's important to note that there is still substantial interannual variability in ice cover on Lake Erie. Because of this, both high and low ice years are still possible despite the downward trend. So it's happening. It's not exponentially just dropping. Like, we haven't lost all the ice. It's not dropping like that. But again, it shows those years where the maximum was much lower than usual. Look at that. I mean, boof, down to nothing. And those were the years maybe that correlated with snowstorms. More snow than usual, which I did not track for this show. And then they talk about management and all that in this particular one. All right, let's go. Where am I? And this is this one. Okay, so this is a lake in winter. This is the Earth Observatory. And this is what it looked like February 5th, 2022. And last year. And February 5th, 2022. In January 2022, Lake Erie nearly froze over entirely with ice cover growing well beyond the seasonal average to reach 94%. Now, we had that storm early, but then it froze over. So they know, scientists and everyday citizens who live and work on the Great Lakes, no behavior of winter ice cover can be unpredictable, and sometimes it can get dangerous, as we've seen. But here, I wanted to get to this one. 3 times in the past half century, Lake Erie reached 100% ice cover, 78, 79, and 96. Pretty interesting. But they are variable, sometimes day to day. The first week of February 22 brought that heavy snowstorm, wildly varying wind speeds and directions, and days of continuous cooling. As a result, the ice extent across the Great Lakes rapidly expanded. On February 1st, the average ice cover across all the lakes was 12%. But 2 days later, it expanded to 28%. And by February 6th, it was 43%. So 73 to 2021, the average annual average maximum ice cover was 53%. That's the average with all of them, which actually it's kind of weird because they're so different. Each one is so different. So I think it's tough. Now, Great Lakes ice cover is very thin and dynamic compared to the Arctic. Since ice thickness is small, wind forcing is the major factor causing the breaking up of through ice internal stress and deformation. Wang said. Additionally, the drifting and breakup of the ice could have been exacerbated by wind catching on the rough ice surface, as would have a stronger wind drag and flat pack ice. So that was a little interesting, but the pictures were good on that one. And this one is the Earth Observatory, and this was showing 2014, so we're going backwards, see? And what it looked like this is Lake Superior now. And Lake Erie you can hardly see it in this. I don't know this. Yeah, there you go. All right. So look at the lakes and look at the bottom. That's pretty wild. All right. That's pretty wild. Yeah. How you doing out there? I'm having a great time. So I'll read. I hope you're putting a cue, and I will read everything after I finish this. So this was 2014, which is cool, looking at it. And that's when we had that big storm. So I'm actually going to move on. I just wanted to show you that. And here's another great article, but of course I'm not going to spend the time reading everything. But this was another one that's talking about decreasing Great Lakes ice cover has consequences. And this is Great Lakes Now, news about the lakes you love. And this one, because we all know human activities from greenhouse gases are what is messing this up, right? Don't we all know that? Yep. So it's pretty much talking about the same kinds of things in the other one. The Great Lakes scientists are concerned that winter ecology is a major knowledge gap, and they're developing studies to better understand the importance of winter and ice to the Great Lakes ecosystems. And they know that lower Great Lakes ice cover, it increases coastal erosion. And I have friends that live on the lake, and they sure as hell know this. Hoover Beach they live in, and that's right on the water. I mean, they get hammered. So the Great Lakes will continue to warm over the next several decades, and despite year-to-year variability, Lake Erie is trending towards an ice-free status during the winter months. Even though we have seen the lakes bounce back from adversity before, less ice cover will be the new normal. So you heard it here from Great Lakes Now. And then we move on to Guarding the Great Lakes, a lake-by-lake look at the challenge and the impact of climate change. Now, this is also newer, October 18th, from the 2023 from the Detroit News, but it was a 5-part series. So what I wanted to go down to here was the same thing, as they talk all about, the fresh water and how much water and who it's home to. Winters are growing warmer and shorter, summers longer. The lakes are battered by stronger storms that carry more water in the warmer air, as well as periodic dry spells. They are losing their once reliable ice cover and experiencing warmer surface water temperatures. Their water levels recently experienced an unusual fluctuation from extreme lows to extreme highs, a swing that is more than likely to be repeated with a warming climate. So, expect those trims. I'm sorry. Okay. Expect those trends to continue for the next 30 years. Yep. And of course, they're going to say, well, we have some influence on what happens depending on how drastically we cut the greenhouse gas emissions. But I'm not, I'm not optimistic. Are you? Look at that. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Anyway, so that was that one. That was from the Detroit News. And that was the Commerce Act. All right. And this is now. This is actually right now. Right now. But I have another little something, and I'm going to find it for you. But I have to figure out which one it is. Did I do this? All right, hang on and just have patience with me, and I'll figure out which is which. I mean, I labeled them and everything, but I'm not perfect, and there's a lot of stuff to maneuver on the screen. So as I do it, I unmuted myself, and I'm going to, let me see, I'm going to get, oh, this was an interesting one. And let me see if we saw this.
Sunshine. The entirety of the Great Lakes are 20% covered in ice. Our lake in particular, we call it our lake, even though we do share it with Cleveland, Toledo, and Erie. We are at about 67% or 68% ice covered. Most of that at the shallow end near Toledo. You can see a lot of open water in the middle of the lake, and now our shallows, as you look, you can see the ice and really held back there, a stark difference. Look at the view, the aerial view. As you can see, the Buffalo River in the foreground, the lighthouse, and the ice goes out several miles. As we kind of give you a look at it, a really gorgeous view yesterday, all that fresh fallen snow. The ice thickness, it's a very new or fresh ice. It's only 4 to 6 inches thick, and you can see how that ice boom holds it back, the open waters of Lake Erie just before it enters the Niagara River, and we were able to catch the Edward Cotter doing its job, breaking up some of the ice. You can see as it breaks into those big sheets, it is not very thick, and I think when we get the winds in the next 24 hours, it is going to move a lot of that ice around the lake. All
right, I screwed my camera up. I really don't know what I did. I hit it. So hang on a second, because I look absolutely crazy and I don't know what I did. Okay, I don't want that. Oh, okay, it'll go back. I hit what is called desk mode. And if you are a creator that trains and shows people, this software has a desk mode. It's really cool, but I hit it by accident with my drink. So, all right. So I've showed you a lot of stuff. It's been interesting, but I'm not done quite yet. Thank God I wasn't muted. All right. So I just wanted to finish showing you what I have here, which was experimental. This is today. Is it? Yeah, today's the 2nd, right? Is today the goddamn 2nd? I don't know. Yes, it's the 2nd. So this is today. There's no ice and ice velocity. Oh, and I have an animation also I wanted to show you, and I hope it's right here. Let me see. Where's the animation? Did I lose the animation? Oh my goodness. Of course, it's the end of the show and I lost what I wanted to do with an animation and I forgot which one it is. So you guys talk while if I find it. Oh, here it is. Okay. This is really cool. And what this does, and I'm going to move it up a little, but we're going to look at what the ice looked like on the Great Lakes from 1973 all the way up. So we are going to play it, and here we go. Look at that. Should I play some music? Pretty cool. I like it. And see how it's variable, how it changes. The lakes are never the same. They're just not the same. No. All right, so we looked at that and we saw how they are definitely changing and went all the way up to 2023, which was pretty shitty. If you look at that. Wow, look at going all the way back to the ice cover and then looking at last year. Is that a little disconcerting? I'd say so. All right. Well, let me see if I have anything more for you that I'll get mad at myself if I forget which one I might have that we haven't seen. So we can have a little fun with this, although I lost my screen. Hang on a second, guys. And then we're going to come back and we are going to finish up with El Nino and what that's going to do. So hang on while I look. I will turn my mic back on and I'm going to look for this one, for the next one. I'm pretty sure I had one or two more. That would be like, oh my God.
The people of Buffalo, New York don't scare easily. President McKinley was assassinated there in 1901 and they moved on. They have loved their Buffalo Bills from the good years through the bad years, and now that they're good again, they have given the world not only Tim Russert, but also Wolf Blitzer. And while Buffalo is a tough town, they may have finally met their match. A relentless snowstorm has dropped nearly 6 feet of snow coming right in off the lake with upwards of
I'm probably
2 more
not going
feet
to play
on the
this
way.
whole one. It's
Daily
long.
life has
I just
simply
wanted
come
to
to a
show
halt
you
for many across a big
national
area.
news coverage.
And the storm has already cost several lives. It is officially a state of emergency tonight across a whole region. It's where we begin our coverage tonight with NBC's Lester Holt. Lester, good evening.
Brian, good evening. It's a jaw-dropping amount of snow. People can't get in and out of their neighborhoods. Here in Cheektowaga, 65 inches
Boy,
have
they sent the
fallen.
big ones
I can touch
in.
the top of a street sign here, and mind you, I'm not on top of the snow. I'm about knee-deep in it right now. As you said,
Yeah, it
it's
was
been
pretty
deadly, at
hairy.
least.
All right, let's move up a little and show some of the pictures of what was going
And their
on.
homes.
Look at that.
The relentless Arctic air, dangerous for
214.
anyone who has to be outside. It started early
Look at
yesterday
that.
as a giant wall of snow, dumping
Wow.
almost 6 feet in some parts. Looking down at the extreme conditions.
Looked like
a
my
whiteout,
house.
Backyards buried, homes under huge drifts.
Yep.
From the air, you really get a sense of the patchwork. Some areas barely got a dusting. Other neighborhoods appear to be just buried. Astonishing, even by Buffalo standards.
I've never seen anything like this. 36, been in Buffalo with some pretty good storms, and this is by far the worst.
100 people stranded on roads. Trucker Mick Brennan was on his way from Massachusetts to Ohio when his semi got stranded in the snow for more than 40 hours.
We use a bunk heater that we have inside the truck to keep warm. And then every now and then we have to start up the engine just to keep it warm, to keep it freezing up.
Police had to use snowmobiles to help when a fire truck got stuck. Today, the National Guard arrived and hundreds of plows were mobilized.
This is an extraordinarily difficult circumstance. We have had a loss of life. Let's hope that we don't have any more.
In and around Buffalo, many are snowbound at home.
That's our backyard.
Chris Hazard and her family spent the day sweeping up this mess. All that snow
Oh
broke
my
through the
God,
back door.
what a mess.
They've had to get creative with the cleanup.
You can see us almost all the way to the top of where the top of the treadmill is, holding it in place.
We've been stuck here since Monday evening.
Jennifer Schramm and her family, including baby Evan, are snowed in and worried about their food supply.
We're trying to ration what we have because we only planned for 3 to 4 days at best. And they're saying the plows may not get to us until it starts to melt over the weekend.
This morning, the Niagara University women's basketball team was rescued after spending more than 24 hours stranded on the highway, rationing food and melting snow for water.
We sure are,
Tonight,
Christy.
The call is out for workers to help shovel
We're a hardy
Buffalo's
bunch
Ralph
of
Wilson
Buffalonians,
football
aren't
stadium
we?
before the Bills play the
Oh,
Jets
and
on
God,
Sunday.
we can't forget the
$10
Bills.
an hour and free tickets to the game if they can get there safely.
Yeah. I had friends that used to do that.
of snow.
All right, so pretty much they're just going to talk. Oh, wait.
This much snow in just 24 hours. Take a look at the radar from the height of the storm yesterday.
Have to
where
get
we
the
saw
meteorologist in
streamers
there.
come in and they pass over the same area for hours and hours and hours, producing snowfall rates at 4 inches per hour. But then a little shift in the wind and the whole thing lifts north. Now we are going to see tonight winds shift back to more of an onshore flow. It's going to turn on the lake effect snow machine once again. We are
I'll
going to see
never
it start
forget it.
around 11 o'clock tonight and last for about 18 hours, producing heavy snow. And where the streamers set up that produce the heaviest snow, we could see another 3 feet fall. And it looks like this area could be the area where we see the 3 feet, Brian.
Dylan Dreyer in Hamburg, New York for us tonight. Remains an incredible weather situation.
All right. We don't need this. Okay, so it's been pretty cool. I mean, I've showed you a lot of interesting things. And even my little story about the guy that set off to go across Lake Erie. But the lakes are amazing. The Great Lakes, there's nothing like them in the world. And sea ice is critical, or lake ice, whatever you want to call it, for a lot of things here. And that storm in 2014 replicated itself with low sea ice in 2022 last year. Christy in the chat was reminding me about 2005. Yeah, and I was living right on the lake then. So yeah, it's a fascinating subject, and I probably could have done hours on it, but I did not. But I could have. Now, the only last thing I wanted to say is it's an El Nino year, so most likely it's going to be warmer and it's going to be drier, which for here is probably going to lead to a really hot summer. And everybody's talking about, what to expect from El Nino, what to expect for 2024. And I'm expecting that I'm going to probably have to save a lot of rainwater from my roof to water my certain plants. But do you guys have any questions? I want to say thank you. Oh my gosh, we'll do the super chats. Holy shit. Wow. Oh my. I'm a little taken back. Tina Clark, 989. Welcome. Oh, Tina Clark said, welcome early, love, and welcome 2023. That's very sweet. Thank you. Wow. Holy shit. Hi, Lorax. Thank you, sweetheart. How nice. Wowie wow. Nadia, happy soon to, Blue Ocean Event New Year or Blue Ocean Lake. Best hangover recovery and resolution success wishes to everyone. I feel the dread if the RLC in the future of the Great Lakes. I hope I'm wrong. Yeah. Cheers, comrades. Love you, Nadia. Thank you so much. Dwayne. Oh, thank you, Dwayne. You are very generous, Dwayne. This is the second really nice gift. You're amazing. Thank you. I'm a very grateful person. And thank you, Erin. How nice. Smiling face with sunglasses. Oh, I see. Is it maybe not showing up, these little things? Well, thank you. Thank you. That's so nice. Okay, well, let's see what other things we have. We have been an hour and 21. And yeah, that was a lot of snow. All right, Jean. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, they can be brutal. All right. So, does this stop to make my head look fat? No, but it probably makes your head look warm and you probably feel warm with it on. Yep. Melanie remembers the blizzard of 95, 96. I lived in New Jersey and we got almost 35 inches of snow. That's a lot in New Jersey. Hello, Bella. And hello, Melanie is from the future. Hi, my dogs are goth. Kim, everybody. Hello, Dawn O'Leary. It's great to see all of you. Looney Tunes, thank you. 2008 was the last time it snowed in New Orleans. Well, you know, sweetheart, anything's possible. Anything's possible. Yeah. Well, I enjoyed doing the show. And you know what? Thank you. I will. I absolutely will. This has been great. I've enjoyed it. I hope you learned about Great Lakes ice, because Great Lakes ice is with us. It's variable. It's going to shift, but the overall trend is downward. How long that takes, well, no one knows. Decades, could be. It's different than the Arctic ice, but we still get those Arctic blasts of air here. I'll tell you that one. Oh, yeah, we really, really do. But thank you, everyone. I almost forgot. Friday night, I have a guest. It won't be live. We have to record because of the time difference. All about climate. Rosh, the debunker. And he's got a lot of videos on his channel where he debunks. And the last one, what the F is he talking about? Reacting to Jordan Peterson on climate change. So this ought to be a really good interview. We're going to do the interview and then I'm going to run it on Friday night. All right. So don't forget that. And Happy New Year again. Really, we didn't do a flush of the day. Okay. We got to do a flush. I'm going to flush. What would I pick to flush? What would you pick to flush? I don't know. Spending a lot of money on icebreakers? Well, we might not need them. Bye-bye. All that money. All right. There you go. I think that was the appropriate flush. Good night, everybody. And thank you. It has been absolutely wonderful. We will be here together through 2024. New faces, new places. All right, guys? So enjoy your evening. I love you all.